looking at a holistic perspective from an asset chain and integrating execution as well upfront in project selection and optimizing the portfolio really provides with a robust investment plan that really will be executed because you have taken all these constraints into consideration.
Hello and welcome back to our podcast series where we discuss the energy transition in the broadest sense, but also the challenges that it brings and how UMS as a company can support in overcoming these challenges. My name is Senna Orshi and I'm your host today. And this is Ed de Vroedt. He is the Vice President and the Managing Director of UMS Group.
Correct.
I already had the honor to speak to some of your colleagues, but please just tell us what it is that you exactly do within the company.
Yeah, I'm heading up the Benelux team here in UMS Group Europe, and especially focusing on the utility industry, helping, supporting utilities in asset management and all related topics like risk management, asset risk management, portfolio management. So that's my role in the company.
In previous episodes, we already spoke on asset management, on black swans, on glide paths. And in this episode, we want to explore how you can overcome challenges by using portfolio management and portfolio optimization.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, before we go there, just please explain what a portfolio exactly is.
So a portfolio, simply said, is just the activities, the combination of activities a company needs to do to achieve its corporate goals, like reliability, like supporting the energy transition, like safety, etc.
Okay. And when I think of portfolio management, what should I think of?
You should think of, let's say, the projects, the investment projects that really deliver the value to the company to achieve the targets. And it's focusing on the best mix of projects is really what is the challenge for a lot of utilities nowadays. Giving all the constraints that they face, and especially within the whole energy transition, it's becoming more and more a challenge to really support and facilitate the energy transition.
And when you say the right mix of projects, like how do you know what the right mix is?
Yeah, that's where let's say portfolio management really can help companies. And it starts, of course, with knowing what kind of projects you need to do. And by selecting the right mix within the given constraints utilities are faced with, it leverages, let's say, the project selection at one side, but also the execution capacity a company has.
Do you have is there a model for that? How do you know?
Yeah, so that's it is an optimization process, and what you want to do is have the projects really listed up, but also in a standardized way that you can compare apples to apples. And nowadays, risk management is well applied within a lot of big utilities across the world, and applying that model really helps utilities to, let's say, rank the projects on a way that the highest priority is on top of the list. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have the right mix, because then you only have a ranking of projects. Like I already said, there are a lot of constraints limiting the utilities really to execute. The workload within the energy transition is huge, and it's increasing over the next 5 to 10 years annually globally from 1 trillion to 4 trillion is expected. So there's a huge ramp
growth.
up. Yeah. And the challenge is not funding anymore.
Yeah, that used to be the challenge.
That used to be the challenge, but it's now really the capacity, simply said, the hands to do the work.
Yeah.
And there are all kinds of ways, solutions that already are having tested or applied within the utility industry. So getting more workforce in, so creating more capacity in the organization. But also looking at all kinds of efficiency gains in project execution, bundling projects, other ways to execute projects. So utilities are facing a huge workload. There are multiple solutions to cover that, and already applied, of course. Creating more workforce, more people, more
Hiring
hands.
more people.
That's simply, of course, the first thing you think of. Or better or more efficient way executing projects. That's as well one. But also you could look at the demand side. So can we flex the demand that we have so we don't have to really enhance the grid? So these are all, let's say, smart solutions to tackle the problem. Portfolio optimization, portfolio management is also one of the solutions utilities should look at, because it creates better insights in not only what we need to do, but also how we should cope with, let's say, the demand that it brings.
Yeah.
So how many resource needs do I have? What kind of materials do I need? Not only now or in the next year, because if we want to change that, we are too late. But planning, adapting to that new future of a ramped up scenario where we have to increase our capital expenditures to really facilitate the energy transition.
Yeah, so there are obviously more solutions to solve problems and overcome
absolutely.
challenges, but you say that portfolio management is absolutely one of them.
Absolutely.
Could you explain for us the difference between companies who do engage in portfolio management and companies who don't, and what's the difference?
Yeah. So what you see with a lot of utilities, that they have been run as very stable, predictable businesses, with processes that have long lead times. Also, it was not needed to be really agile.
Yeah,
with the energy
that's how we've been doing it for years,
decades,
and that worked.
And that worked, and it's and these processes are needed to really be robust, to be reliable, to be safe in the execution of our work, to have the grid available long term. But with, let's say, the challenges of the energy transition, ramping up the capital expenditure to really facilitate the energy transition, we need other business models.
Yeah.
We need to be more agile. And that's where you want to have really a good knowledge about what is really coming up to us, not only for the next year to 5 years, but really have a long-term view on things, and anticipate on that ramped up scenario. And portfolio management really can help in, okay, what is then the workload that we have? And we know that with, let's say, the given constraints, and for example, the war in Ukraine accelerated the whole energy transition. Supply chain issues. China is now just open, and we don't get all the materials from China, but we know that all these conflicts are impacting hugely supply chains. And we already see that it postpones projects to really deliver in time the projects.
Yeah.
But also scarcity of the laborers. so skilled laborers, especially engineers. You see it not only in the utility industry, but everywhere. It is
There's a shortage.
it's a shortage,
Yeah.
and it's a war for talent. And studies see that over 40% of people are looking for other jobs, in changing jobs. With a aging workforce, it is becoming a huge problem for utilities. So you have to be very critical in how to select the right things to do first to be able to facilitate
Yeah.
the energy transition.
And how do you see portfolio management coming in to support in these areas?
Yeah, so by not only ranking projects on their value, ranking the highest project that brings most value, but also optimizing the portfolio, not just prioritizing, but optimizing against the constraints. So and that mix of projects that will bring the best value,
Yeah.
achieving corporate goals, but also if you really integrate it into the whole asset chain, so not only from, for instance, an asset management department that does the planning of project and selecting the project, but also including in an early stage execution, because they know exactly how it is in the field, what kind of maybe local constraints they have, where they see that they don't have the hands or the critical resources.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of, for instance, supervisors with a safety designation that are very limited, and if you don't have these critical roles, that will be the limiting factor in really executing these projects. So looking at a holistic perspective from an asset chain and integrating execution as well upfront in project selection and optimizing the portfolio really provides with a robust investment plan that really will be executed because you have taken all these constraints into consideration.
Yeah. And then when you talk about ranking different aspects to add value, when you talk about value, what do you mean?
Yeah, so value is connected, and we call that alignment of line of sight in the asset management domain. If you have a sustainability target as a company, you should also act on it, and act on it in the way that you make sure that the projects executed in the field are relating to the objective that you have, the corporate objective that you have. So that value could be expressed in reliability. You don't want to have the grid being interrupted a lot, or the availability, or safety, low safety incidents. But also a lot of utilities have as a mission statement, we need to facilitate the energy transition. So sustainability targets are as well one of these business values that you need to quantify in selecting projects. And that's what we mean with value. And nowadays risk management is largely applied within utilities. And with, let's say, risk management, you can quantify projects on their contribution to the business values, in fact, the corporate objectives.
That sounds like a very systematic framework.
Yeah. So you need to have that because you want to compare projects like they are apples to apples.
Yeah.
So they are on the same way, objectively and consistently quantified, and then it's easy to rank them. Because then the most valuable project will come up first.
Yeah, and then once you've ranked them, how do you take on from there? Like, where does the optimization start? Because when I see the rankings, it's just a ranking.
Yeah,
It doesn't say
yeah,
anything
yeah, yeah.
yet, right?
Yeah.
So where does the optimization comes in?
Yeah, the optimization comes in. It's an iterative process. First you do the ranking, so you know exactly, okay, this is how we want to execute. But the optimization comes in with, let's say, an analysis of the constraints. So you want to, of course, look at the most valuable project and see if you can facilitate that with the resources that you have available, not only with, let's say, the internal laborers that you have, like the supervisors, the engineers, etc. But also you have to look at, okay, can we get the materials in by the time that we need it? Or do we have enough outage windows available to really execute the work?
Yeah.
We are rebuilding the store while the store is open. So you can't just do everything at once because you need to really plan that carefully.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, what you said. You need to rebuild the store while the store is still open,
Yeah.
while all the processes are still active.
Yeah, yeah,
So you need to change while working,
yeah, absolutely.
keep operating, but at the same time adjust.
Yeah,
That's a hard one.
yeah, that's a hard one. And like I said, these utilities are coming from another business model where they were predictable in a stable market, and the market conditions are completely changed. It's dynamic, it's
Yeah.
agile, and you need to, first of all, have a good understanding of what do we need to do
Yeah.
over not just the next year or the next 5 years, but the next 10 years. Have scenarios in place for that, but be agile as well in building these scenarios. But also be very agile in your processes, in your governance. They need to change that, not looking for just project by project and decide on project base, but look at in a broader perspective
Yeah.
in the portfolio. So when project will come in gradually. It's not just you get a bunch of projects and then you optimize. No, it comes in gradually, and normally utilities then will decide, okay, this project, okay, it's fine by its nature, and we can execute, and somewhere it puts in the investment planning. Now need to do is really upfront see, okay, what is the impact of putting this additional project that is valuable to the company into the portfolio and see what the impact is.
Yeah.
Because it could be a high ranked project, maybe that pushes out another project as well. So that is really, let's say, portfolio management, to really see what the impact is of a project, deciding to do it, but also the impact on the total portfolio.
Yeah.
And that's really a challenge for utilities nowadays.
Yeah. So you say before executing a project, you need to put it in a framework, rank it, analyze it, and see what the effect is in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the company as a whole, combined with other products or services.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
I can imagine that if you want to be able to analyze all of this and make decisions based on that, you will need to be accessing valuable information.
Yeah.
I think everything is information in this case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so good decisions, particular asset decisions, comes with good asset data, information that you need really to make these decisions.
But how can companies get access to this information, even when it's just like being inspired how to make certain changes? How do they get the information?
Yeah, so that's a challenge. So and thinking of we do it all at once doesn't work. It doesn't tick the box. In my opinion, and we've applied it multiple times, you need to have an incremental approach. So starting with really looking at your projects and listing them up in a consistent way, and knowing what kind of data do I need to really optimize the portfolio.
Yeah.
But secondly, you need then as well to know your bottlenecks, your constraints. Because if you want to optimize the portfolio, you not only need to know your projects and what they need, but also what the availability of these resources is.
Yeah.
And that's really the challenge. But that's where it starts. So you need to create that overview of your projects, your portfolio, but also on the needs of that portfolio.
Yeah.
And that's where data comes in. You don't need all the data, but you need exactly the data that is needed to make your
The
decisions,
relevant data.
the relevant data.
Yeah.
How do we select it and how do we collect it? That is what UMS supports by. Also setting up the whole framework of optimization. Having, and it's not only the decision making, but it's the governance around it as well.
Yeah.
So incremental approach, it starts all with awareness.
Yes.
So if you
for
don't,
sure.
if you don't have, let's say, the key stakeholders involved early in the process,
Yeah.
you will end up with something that is not embedded in the organization because nobody sees the relevance of it. So starting with really creating awareness and looking at, let's say, the decision makers. Normally these are committees that are looking for, let's say, the asset decisions, the project decisions to be made, but really show them what the added value is of portfolio optimization, portfolio management.
Yeah.
And you can do it conceptual, and everybody will agree, but that's where the incremental approach comes in. So not going back to a drawing board, designing the whole system, and then say, okay, this is it. But look for small things that you can already prove to the organization this works.
Yeah.
This provides more insights, and it's not perfect, but if you then provide a dot on the horizon where we want to go, and especially you can't really take that huge leap step in once because normally data won't be available. So, but if you have that dot on the horizon, you say, okay, and we are now on this side, and for instance, we can now optimize against our own internal resource constraints. That is one step you can already make. That's already a step ahead.
Yeah.
And then see if you can, in cooperation with, for instance, strategic procurement, look at external constraints, like transformers. That could be an issue in having that in time for the project. Strategic procurement can help you in a sense that they know the market, can analyze, okay, do we see really constraints in the next year or the next 5 years or 10 years?
Yeah.
And really can set up, if you have a stable plan scenario of where we want to go, you can really create strategic partnerships in the marketplace as well, in saying, okay, guys, this is what comes to us. And if we want to be successful, not only from the utility side as one of the chain of the whole energy transition, but also the supply chain, making sure they can deliver in time to really facilitate the whole energy transition.
Yeah, I can't help but to think of this process as very, very, very complex.
Yeah, if you really can take it step by step, you can really facilitate that process and complexify the whole thing.
I'm just wondering, like, if you're choosing not to apply portfolio management, what are the dangers for that?
Yeah, so what we see is that if you don't have that portfolio management in place, and there's not, let's say, a good linkage within the asset chain, projects are selected, but you will have postponements of projects in the delivery because it's not aligned in the asset chain. And portfolio optimization can help in making sure not only the best projects are selected, but also against the constraints that you have in the whole asset chain. And we see that if we don't use optimization, portfolio optimization, less projects are delivered and less value is created. And there's a 15 to 20% gain with, let's say, the same amount of money, choosing the right mix and within the given constraints in portfolio productivity.
So that sounds like more money, more effort, but less effects, less results.
Even with the same money, more bang for your buck, because you're selecting the right mix of projects that actually can be executed because you already checked that it can be executed within these given constraints. So the robustness of the investment plan really increases.
Yeah.
And eventually it will end up that you plan for an X million of projects to be executed, that you can make a point landing in time, that you say, okay, we really delivered what we promised to.
Yeah. So it sounds for me as if you're just try to become more aware of all of the different projects, but also how they connect and how they affect each other, and how they can be combined together to get best practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is complex.
For sure.
But it's also, it's not something you have to set up at once. So you could gradually optimize the whole optimization process, creating more transparency across the chain, looking at the transparency of, let's say, your strategic partners, suppliers, knowing what their capacity is, and integrating that into your own asset chain. And with gradually incremental approach, it is really a doable and exciting challenge for utilities.
That's if you're using portfolio management.
That's if you are using portfolio management and you're agile to face these challenges going forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ed, for sharing this information with us. I really hope we've been able to inspire you to learn a little bit more about portfolio management and how you can use it to overcome some of the energy transition challenges. If you need any help, then you can just contact UMS Group through the website. Thank you so much and see you next time.